Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Omnia Performance Podcast. I'm JB, and I'm joined today by our man, Tom, our head nutritionist. How are you, sir? You good?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, not that I'm counting down the days and weeks till Christmas, but yeah, I'm getting quite excited for a bit of time off, bit of time with the family, bit of time with the newest addition to our family. As many people know, I became a dad this year, so first Christmas with three of us in this household. So yeah, looking forward to it, and obviously it's quite topical with what we're going to be diving into today. How you doing, big man?
Yeah, all good, thank you, mate. Yeah, much the same as you. Looking forward to having a little bit of time off over Christmas, chilling out with the family, some mates. Yeah, should be good. And as you say, we're going to be talking a bit about Christmas. Very topical. So this is probably like one of our most requested topics, right? Lots of questions about how to keep training and nutrition moving in the right direction over Christmas, over New Year, without turning into a monk or feeling guilty, should we say? So like it's a difficult time of year, isn't it? Like your routine falls apart quite a bit. Work changes, work's a bit more chilled out. There's lots of social occasions, more food, less sleep, less structure. And we often tend to kind of like go between a couple of extremes. So today we're going to try and keep it simple, aren't we? We've got a few points each, myself on training, Tom on nutrition, and we're going to talk about things that actually help to keep you consistent, apply some realism to the situation, feel better, and to go into January without having to rebuild. So, Tom, are you happy to go first, mate, with your first point?
Yeah, I'll dive in. And let's say it's such a common question that people have been asking almost since the 1st of December, if not before. As soon as the Halloween decks go away, people start asking me about what should I do with my nutrition in December? What should I do about Christmas? How do I not let the wheels kind of come off everything? And look, I want to be really bold here and say that, look, unless you have got an A race over Christmas or in the first week of January, you can just take a bit of time out. You do not need to be eating in a way that supports performance primarily over the Christmas period. Do you need to be tracking calories, watching your intake? No. I'm going to be really bold here and just say it that like it's a time of connection. It's a time to catch up with friends, family, relax, give thanks and enjoy food. A couple of indulgent days will not undo 11 and a half months of good habits. So cut yourself some slack, enjoy it, be present. And what are you going to remember? Like having a really good Christmas, fun time with friends and family, few drinks, good meals, having your nana's trifle, whatever Christmas means to you, you've got to do those things because that's what you're going to look back on. You don't want to be looking back on, oh, well, yeah, I hit my calories and macros on Boxing Day. Like, no one cares. A lot of us are paying to train. We are not paid to train. So we are doing this for the enjoyment and the fun of it. And we need to remember that when it comes to Christmas, I believe.
No, couldn't agree more, mate. It's micromanagement at its finest, isn't it? Like just worrying about these silly little details that in the grand scheme of things are going to make naff difference. I mean, like, as you said yourself, it's a couple of weeks out of 52. And you know, if you're getting so worked up about such a small period of time, it's silly. Instead, worry more about the other 50 odd weeks. And you'll be moving in the right direction, right? So no, very, very good point. I think is something that people often forget. You know, apply a bit of realism and look at the bigger picture. Cool. Right, ready for a training one?
Yeah. So with your line of work in person and online, what would be the key, the one big thing you might tell our athletes to do over this festive period?
Yeah, I think like you don't want to train with any sort of like pressure, but you want to try and keep like your pattern and your structure as best as you can. So I think like sometimes with everything going on, you know, never say never, but you might not be in PB shape if you're underslept, drinking a little bit more, overindulging, etc., etc. But instead, it's the more important part is just keeping the shape of your routine in place. And you don't need to be striving for perfect sessions or even full sessions. if your training normally takes like an hour, if you're super busy because you're preparing for guests or whatever at Christmas time, just do 20 minutes. Like, it's something is always better than nothing. And you're just trying to move through those patterns. And it's about staying kind of like connected to your habit, your patterns, your routine, so that when January comes around, you don't feel like you're completely starting from scratch again. And you end up in this horrible cycle that we've all perhaps been in ourselves or heard about, where you kickstart things again in January and you feel like you're starting from scratch. So having that kind of being able to take that pressure off actually helps you show up a little bit more often, makes it more realistic, because the barrier is that bit lower, I would say. I'd say that's my top way to approach it.
I really like that, particularly where you said something is better than nothing. And I think I often use the analogy of like a dimmer switch when things aren't optimal. I think so many people try and live in this world of, I've got to be perfect with my training, perfect with my nutrition, perfect with my
you
sleep.
think of it as like binary, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Whereas actually there's nothing wrong with having the dial turned down to like 5 out of 10 for a couple of weeks. And what you were saying there about like habits and behaviours and patterns, I think there's nothing wrong with still striving to have those. Mm-hmm. And from a nutrition point of view, I often either use the term like anchors or use the term like non-negotiables. So even if you are going to, say you are going to, hit it hard between Christmas and New Year and go all in on the celebrations and the trifle and whatever, you could still decide that, right, I'm going to focus on daily hydration. Start the day with a big glass of water, particularly if you've been on the beers the night before. Try and get some protein in across the day to help with satiety, to help maintain, support muscle mass. Make sure that if you are going to train, like, you fuel that session well. Like, go into that session with a bit of intention, so you don't just half-arse it. Like, have some carbs before you train, have a decent meal post-workout to help recovery. And then if you can, to keep the old nutritionist here happy, look after your immune and your gut health by having like a colourful plate of food across the day. Whether that is like your Christmas Day dinner or your Boxing Day leftovers or your bubble and squeak or whatever it is with frying off your leftovers, but like still try and get some colour in across the day. And just because then when you're ready to turn that dial back up again, whenever your reset point is, whenever like the kids go back to school or you go back to work and you want to turn that dial up again, whether it's with your training, like you said, or with the nutrition here, you're not that far away from what you were doing in November and December, potentially.
Yeah, like smart, very smart. And what you got next, man, for your nutrition?
Next one is like, and this might vary from person to person, but like how to navigate parties and socials. Because I do know some people where they're almost a bit like a badger in the headlights, where they've got almost something every weekend, sometimes multiple events per week. A lot of clients, a lot of people we work with, eat out and travel, and it's a very social time of year. So you can't, you could undo a lot of progress in December if you've got a lot of social events. So it's trying to have some sort of plan, because I think if we go and wing it as human beings, it often doesn't end up well. And if we still want to try and maintain a relatively decent set point, so let's say we're not going 2 steps backwards, as long as we can tread water and maintain what we're doing from a training, a body composition point of view, whatever we're up to, that's great. And then we can kick on in the new year. So if you've got a social event, it's just a little bit of planning, I think, around it, because sometimes you can't control the food that's going to be provided or the social pressure to drink potentially, but you could control what your breakfast looks like, have your go-to breakfast, plan your lunch, and then what you do in the following day. Where I see so many people kind of undo good work is that one night out overspills. You wake up the next day, I've got no breakfast, so I'll grab breakfast on the way into the office, or we end up getting a takeaway that night because I've got no shopping in, and suddenly we're losing a couple of days there. So set a few little kind of soft boundaries, whether that's how much you're going to drink or what your breakfast is going to be the day after. Know kind of almost what that kind of minimal viable day is. Like, say it might be hydration, a walk, protein at breakfast. Again, just those kind of anchors and behaviours that can keep you moving forward. I always set a rule, and this is probably me getting old, JB, of like 2 pints, because I personally believe, for me now, nothing good happens after 2 pints. Like, I just end up poor sleep. If I have more than 2 pints, I'll probably have 6. So I'll probably be hungover. It affects the following day. So, even as an example, as we're recording this, we're getting together as a team tomorrow on our Christmas social. And I've already said, like, me and Fergus had a conversation with like 2 pints, and it's like the nod. So I put it out there now. I'll have to make sure that I do only have 2 pints.
It's public knowledge.
Public knowledge, but I can be present, I can enjoy it, I can have a nice couple of pints, and then walk away being like, I didn't gain anything by going all in on the drink, and I'm not going to lose anything the following day by just being sensible, being an adult, and knowing what's coming and trying to have a bit of an action plan for it. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense, mate. I think as well, like, you don't, again, speaking of like binary decisions, it doesn't have to be a binary decision. You don't have to decide to get absolutely annihilated or not go at all. You do have the self-control there to actually just have a couple of drinks, especially if, like, you know, if you're training and health is important to you, it's, you know, you can factor it in. You can get it all balanced. It's not necessarily a case of just saying, well, I'll just won't go out then and being miserable and, as we put it at the start, living like a monk. Yeah, and I think as well, like, the same thing applies to training as well. Like, if you know you've got these events coming up, preempt the disruption. So if you know you're not going to be feeling tip top the day after, like, your work's Christmas party or whatever, don't plan your leg session with sprints to follow. Instead, adapt things a little bit, preempt that you might be feeling a little bit worse for wear, and plan accordingly. So no, very, very, very good points, man. Right, another training one. So I would now say a bit of an elaboration upon my first point. Mini sessions are better than no sessions at all. So this time of year is obviously chaotic. You've got travel going on, family visiting friends, loads of food, socials. So your training has to be able to shrink to fit your life in other areas. And that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And what we also have to remember, and I think a lot of people neglect, is the biggest absolute benefit to your health, performance, whatever, is going from nothing to something. So people often forget and they think like, well, if my session's an hour, but I only end up doing 20 minutes, again, this binary thinking, they think, oh, what the hell's the point? I might as well not bother. But actually, you've got a hell of a lot to gain from just going from nothing to something. So could be like a short jog, could be if you've got a strength training session and say there's 6 exercises in there, normally in your program, the first couple of exercises are like the big kind of meat and potatoes, bread and butter exercises. Just go in and get those done. You could even just make a bit of a deal with yourself and say like, right, I'm feeling pretty shitty, but I'm just going to go in, I'm just going to warm up, see how you feel. You never know, you might actually do a little bit better than you think. And how are you expecting your own training to change, if at all, over Christmas? Have you got any bits going on that's going to disrupt?
At the minute, I've got no plan, which is not great. So I think and even just listening to you talk there is, I sometimes see it as an opportunity to do other things where, because of work schedules, I don't often maybe get to train with other people, or I've got visiting friends and family that maybe we like to go out for a long walk, or we take the dogs out, or let's say it's an opportunity actually to be okay with not following a set routine. And just doing something, daily activity, whether that is, right, I can get in the garage, let's say, for 20 minutes, you said there, and just go in and squat. That's great. Or let's say it might be, right, Boxing Day, I get out with the family and we're going to go for a really long walk or something. Like, I think, yeah, being okay with not having structure for a week, because actually, you know, personally, I'm off work, so I want to be connecting and being with my family and not going out for a run for 2 hours. You know, I know that when I'm ready when I go back to work, it will be easier to probably fit in training around your kind of day-to-day routine again when you've got that routine there.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think what's really nice hearing you say about that is you've anticipated that things aren't going to be exactly the same as normal, but you seem very much at peace with it. And I think that's sometimes half the battle. Half the battle is people can't cope with the stress that inevitably comes with not following what they normally do. Whereas, as I say, with you sound like, right, this is what's going to happen, and I'm cool with it. It's different. It's still positive. It might not be the thing that's going to, you know, change my performance to that absolute top optimal degree, but it's all still good, positive stuff, right?
Absolutely. And do you find, and this is something I think can be common, but I'm interested to know if you've experienced it with the people you've worked with, is that then coming out of this kind of Christmas Day, Boxing Day, maybe even New Year period, is that then people feel the need to maybe do more, kind of jump back in and pick up and catch up with training volume, or try and burn off calories and things like that. Have you had to have conversations with people in the past around that?
Oh, mate, absolutely. I think it's the case for a lot of us. I think we kind of work as like a bit of a pendulum swing. You kind of go from one extreme to the other, don't you? Sometimes, like, you feel like you've had this overindulgence over Christmas, so then you say like, right, I'm now going to hit it really hard come January. I'm going to try and make up for lost time. I'm going to make sure I eat a little bit less. I'm going to try and make sure I move a lot more. But the sad thing with that is, because the pendulum's going to just the other opposite extreme, you're probably going to swing back again. So I think I try and really emphasize to people it's just about getting back to your regular habits. You don't actually need to like try harder per se. It's just getting back to what you were doing before. And that's ultimately going to get you much more settled. It's going to have you working on a much more kind of predictable path, as it were. Yeah, I think rather than being like too much for try hard. I know sometimes that can seem quite paradoxical to people though. They're like, what, I shouldn't try as hard. But actually, I think sometimes you got to be relaxed about these things a little bit and just be normal, basically, as hard as that is sometimes.
Really like it, that reframing and just seeing the opportunity in things. And it kind of, a poor segue, but leads into my next nutrition point, JB, which is, again, if you have overindulged, if you have eaten more than you planned to, if things haven't quite gone to plan, or you have gone all in on the leftovers on Boxing Day, you've inadvertently carb loaded, right? And what I commonly see people get wrong is they're like, right, I'm going to, put myself on kind of poverty calories and feel horrendous for a couple of days and try and, like, say, balance things out. Don't be a dick to yourself and do that. See it as an opportunity. I would say, maybe you agree, maybe you disagree with this, that the period between Christmas and New Year is a great time to get in the gym and load up that barbell and see what happens. Because if you've got a bit more energy, you could have the potential for a bit more power or more reps or even just like a bit more fun with your training. Like lean into that, surprise calorie surplus basically, and don't punish the food. Don't feel like you've got to do loads of cardio, because I know if I was to go and try and run, I don't know, 10 miles something after Boxing Day, I'm going to feel really heavy. But if I go in the gym and squat or bench or something, I'm probably going to be a few kilograms heavier. That barbell's going to move quick. So just see what happens, safely, obviously. But I've hit some really good numbers before between Christmas and New Year, where like I'm feeling great. I'm maybe a bit more rested, maybe a bit more sleep, and some more carbohydrates. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, man. No, I agree. I think it's a good way of just positively reframing things, isn't it? It's a time of year where people often think like, oh, because I've been like eating and drinking, that's going to put a bit of a negative slant on things, and I'm not going to get the results I want because it just doesn't seem like all quite right. However, as you say, getting all those like carbohydrates in, getting the sodium in as well, you get some good pumps in the gym. You may just pull a good performance out of the bag. And I think as well, like, I know not everyone does, but a lot of us will have time off between Christmas and New Year as well. So as you say, you might be a bit better slept, you might be better rested, and actually, yeah, you could surprise yourself. And I think we do try and get that across, other times of the year as well. Like oftentimes you have to like give these sessions a go. Like even when you don't think you're going to be performing at your absolute best, you may not expect yourself to be tip top. You can actually surprise yourself. Like, and you can get into the gym despite, having eaten God knows what and drunk loads and actually still, pull a great performance out of the bag. So yeah, very, very good point, I think, mate. Yeah. And I think as well, like, this perhaps leads nicely into my next point as well, is even when you don't expect to be doing great, just kind of try and train anyway. So you're going to expect some inconsistency, your routine's disrupted, everything is going to fluctuate and just be off normal. You're not going to feel amazing in every session, but that is completely normal. And however you choose to monitor your performance, whether that's weight on the bar, reps performed, running pace, as you say, you might be running a little bit heavy, your performance is going to bounce around a bit, and you don't need to take that as a sign that your training session isn't worth it. So if indeed, I know we've said that you might surprise yourself positively, let's pretend that actually, you know what, your performance wasn't quite as great as you'd hoped. That doesn't make your training session any less effective. Like the training stress is still there. Just because you didn't display X, Y, or Z in terms of variables, whether that's running pace, power on the bike, or whatever, that training session can still be worthwhile. I mean, like, I'm sure you've had exactly the same thing, mate. You've prepared for events before, and, you might love to have your training be linear and progress linearly, but it doesn't. I know I certainly have as well, but it's what's more important is you're just showing up and you're getting it done anyway. I think that's pretty key. And I'm sure there's some parallels there with the nutrition side of things as well, in terms of like consistency beating perfection.
Absolutely, yeah. Like what we spoke about there in terms of having anchors, having just some daily habits around things that you know work for you the rest of the year. So let's say you haven't got to throw everything out the window and just give up and just completely down tools. You can just, let's say, be sensible. And then coming out of that, would maybe agree with or consider the idea of then having a bit of a not a reset point, but a bit of a line in the sand of like, right, Christmas is done. I'm now going to try and turn that dial back up again. And sometimes we have to create that ourselves a little bit as well. So I know just from experience and chatting to people over a number of years in this game that it's the leftovers that can be hanging around. It's the half-eaten box of this, and people don't like to waste food, etc. And sometimes it's not the big blowout. It's the fact that it's like you're on an all-inclusive holiday for like a week or so. So whatever your reset point is, whether it's the 2nd of January, whether it's the day the kids go back about the 5th, whether it's whatever point you decide, actually, I'm done. I think you need to get control of your environment, and sometimes that might be whether it's I've done it before. We've had guests come around and I'm giving them food as they're leaving the house. Right, take that with you. Yeah, you can have that, and we just clear the environment in terms of then, because I can very easily overconsume if stuff's hanging around. So I like a nice clean environment, bit of a reset point, and I think your environment will always beat your motivation to start. So if your environment's right and then the intention's right around, right, I'm going to get back in the gym tomorrow, get your kit ready, get your food prepped, get organised, you'll find that structure again. No one really like falls off a wagon. I think people just step down and then just don't get back on again. That's how I would describe it. So let's say, but sometimes I think human nature, we just need to be a little bit firm with ourselves and be like, right, Christmas is over, get the decks down, bin the leftovers, donate everything else, go feed the neighbours instead, and let's turn that dial back up. That would be my my kind of final tip for the Christmas period, I would say.
Yeah, no, I like it, mate. I think it's a funny one, isn't it? When what you said there, I'm sure we've always had that kind of consideration, but then you are like, oh, I don't want to waste food, I don't want to throw it away or whatever. But actually, it's not really being wasteful, is it? I would argue that actually just like eating stuff that you don't even really want is equally as wasteful as just throwing it away. And I think also like when you do that, you recognise that you do have agency in these situations. You are an adult. You can make your own decisions. And at first, at the risk of sounding patronising, it can feel like a little bit scary. But actually, you do it. You tell yourself you can do it. You realise you come out the other side of it fine, and it carries on into other stuff as well. Like so much of like what we do in terms of like eating well, training properly, is doing stuff that we don't want to do right in the moment, but it's going to get us the result that we do want to do further down the line. At the risk of going off on a bit of a tangent, it's almost like paying into your pension. Like you'd much rather spend the money now. Let's be honest, it's way more fun. But putting that money aside for when you're old and crusty is incredibly important as well. So I really like it, man. And right, should we have one more training one before we wrap things up?
Anything to wrap up from your end of
training? I think so. So the last one is just trying to shift a little bit more to maintenance mode. So if you think like normally we do get people to be reasonably aggressive, I think, chasing loads, chasing volume. We often then have, because we're trying to push for that most of the time, we do often think of like maintenance being like boring, being ineffective. But actually, I think it's perfect. And it just also enables you to calibrate as to like what your maintenance actually is. And what is interesting is, in my experience, both in terms of like an athlete myself as well as a coach, your maintenance, like what actually enables you to hold on to the adaptations you've already got, is often much lower than you think, which I think is actually quite reassuring. The amount of times that we have forced periods of rest, whether that be due to injury or holiday or illness or whatever, knowing what we have to do merely just to keep things ticking along is incredibly useful. So you can use the month of December, or even just that week between Christmas and New Year with all the socials going on, to actually kind of work that out. And usually a couple of big lifts, some sort of easy aerobic sessions is all you really need just to try and tick things along. So you can do, for the aerobic sessions, just something that's going to get your heart rate up but doesn't absolutely bury you. Keep all your training pretty low stress. And where we've already got like a busy time going on, your body already knows that. It already knows that you've got tons of stress coming in. Use your training as a little bit of like a pressure valve to let off some steam, whether that's to kind of like get away from relatives you don't really like or whatever else. And it just helps to keep you grounded, right? So you feel a little bit better, you feel a little bit more energized, you feel good for having worked despite eating an absolute ton or drinking too much. So I would just say, as a caveat to that, if a session feels like it's adding a little bit too much stress, just try and scale it back. And it's all about trying to support yourself rather than to further drain you. I think that's all from me now as well.
Yeah, very good, mate. I like it, and it's almost a bit similar to a taper, isn't it? Like, you're not going to get any fitter. You're not going to suddenly put 10 kilograms on your bench press between Christmas and New Year, unless you have had loads of potatoes and you have done lots of carb loading. But I think you can potentially go backwards. You know, you can, like, say, whether you're sleep deprived, stressed, if you're still trying to fit all your training in around everything else, you could leave yourself a bit burnt out, and are you more at risk then of something going ping in the gym or out running, or you get sick, and then when you want to then turn the dial up and really go for it in January, you can't because you're 2 steps backwards. So I think you're right. Sometimes that ability to just zoom out, again, look at the bigger picture here. It's 1 to 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks max out of the year, to be able to kind of kick on and put the hammer down. You can't continually always make progress from kind of bottom left to top right of a graph. You have to have periods of deload and rest and recovery. So let's say leaning into maintenance, I think is a really, really powerful way to think about that, and being okay with doing a bit less. Hard for us everyday athletes to think like that. But you want to recharge, you want to recover, and like I say, you don't want to start January not being able to train. So yeah, be an adult and be sensible. It's very boring advice, but something that I think I'm definitely going to take on board, JB. Thank you.
No, pleasure, man. Well, cool. Right, I think we'll wrap up there, shall we? So hopefully everyone, this gives you a good bit of reassurance heading into the Christmas period. And as we said, like we're not trying to get perfection out of anyone, ourselves included. You don't need to punish yourself at all for enjoying things. As Tom said, it's one very, very small portion of the year. So frame it accordingly. So what we would like to say now, if you've got a desire to have some structure on the other side of Christmas, we've got something great waiting for you in January, and that is the Wintering. It's our 12-week hybrid program, which is designed to get you strong, fit, and more robust through those dark winter months. And we start in January. We're already working hard behind the scenes. The community's taking shape, and it's the perfect way to turn a low pressure December into something that gives you some real momentum going into the new year. So all of the details are in the show notes. If you've got any questions, just drop us a message. So thanks for listening. Enjoy your Christmases, everyone. Train when you can, and we'll see you in the next one.